McGregor fights, you're witnessing something that comes along once in a lifetime.
Who was going out there time and time again, putting it all on the line and continuing to show up?
I see a red door and I want to paint it black.
Oh, he slapped him in only 13 seconds. The first man ever to hold 2 titles simultaneously. Oh, that looks good. What he's been able to do in such a short period of time has been nothing short of magnificent. Conor McGregor has transcended the sport.
The game changer, Conor McGregor. He's been away for some time now. Who should welcome him back to the octagon?
Conor doesn't care. Conor says, I will fight anybody, anytime, at any weight.
So, who is McGregor gonna fight?
I look inside myself and see my heart is black.
Donald Cowboy Cerrone! You're looking at a legit wild man. The all-time leader in wins. The all-time leader in finishes. Who likes fighting more than Donald?
He will fight anyone, anywhere, anytime.
Conor, here I come. You're too slow and too stiff. You're stiff as a board. I'd snap you in half.
Come on, man. Sit the down. Conor McGregor is the most popular fighter in the history of the sport.
I'm just simply the best fighter, and that's it.
The king is back.
Most wins in UFC history and most finishes in UFC history.
This is a massive, massive event. I can't wait.
I'm gonna take the game back under control.
Let's ride. Let's go.
Let's go! What's going on, guys? UFC 246. Yeah, getting official. Hope you guys like the promo intro there. Vanglorious, you did not win yet, but you do have a chance. So big news here. Got a lot of stuff to go over here. Going to break down the fights as usual from a DraftKings perspective. Thank you, Crusader. Appreciate that, Brett. Going to break down the fights from a DraftKings perspective. Going to give my favorite bets for the card as well. The two big things are, if you don't know already, 2 fights were canceled. It was the Dawson fight and the Claudia Gadelha, Alexei Grasso. So it's down to 11 fights. So we have a little bit of time, but we do have a lot of stuff to get to. Basically, I'm going to give away an entry to the main tournament on DraftKings, the $24.60 entry, 100K to first place. And so I have an idea on how we're going to do this here. Basically, it's done in Twitch, so I'm going to see if it'll work. Bear with me. We're going to do that first, and then I'll go ahead and break down the fights, and then we'll see if we have a lot of people at the end still. Maybe we'll do it a second time as well. But basically, I'm going to start this mini game in the in Twitch itself, and then you guys will join it. You play a little game. Whoever wins that mini game will be the winner for the ticket. Send me your PayPal or Venmo, and I will get that over to you. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll break down the fights, and we'll get into it. So like I said, this is the first time I'm doing this, so we'll see if or how smoothly it works. Give me 1 second here to start this mini game, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so you guys see a new round of Flight Mania is starting in 30 seconds. So I believe you should have an option to join that. If someone can give me confirmation on that. We'll see if this works. If it works, it'll be pretty cool because you guys play against each other. Okay, good. Thanks. Worked for you, Chapman. Appreciate that. Awesome. Make sure you get in there. This is to be eligible for the giveaway. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, really. I've never done this before, but I thought it was a cool idea. Basically, Right now, it says 1 viewer playing. I don't know. You guys in the game right now? That your extension it says 1 viewer playing, 2 minutes left. I thought I was going to be able to watch it. This sucks. All right, well, whenever this game ends, let me know who wins if you guys are playing against each other. If not, we'll scrap this, and I have a backup plan. Okay. Chapman's playing. Okay. It says 1 minute and 30 seconds left. I don't know how to quit. I think it's just, if it's only you, then I guess it didn't work. All right. We'll scratch this. I thought it was going to pull up like on the screen. I saw somebody else do it, and basically everyone was able to watch you guys play against each other. And congratulations, Nurse Joy. You have won the round. Yeah, so that's not what I was looking for. All right, scratch that idea. We'll get into the fights. We'll do the giveaway at the end. Yeah, note to self, that did not work. All right. What are we doing here? Oops. Oh, okay. All right, there I am. All right, so we'll get into the fights as per usual. I'll give my breakdown. Any questions, feel free to interrupt me in the chat as we go along here. Overall, not a super great card for a pay-per-view card, but that's okay because there's still a ton of money to be made. And I don't think it's as bad, at least prior to the 2 fights getting canceled. I don't think it was going to be as bad as people were kind of making it out to be. There's definitely still a handful of fights here I'm really excited about. Some younger guys up and coming. That we're all excited to see. But the interesting thing here is a lot of close fights. So as you'll see, as we get through the card, a lot of these underdogs are like plus 150 or better. So there is a lot of close fights, which means could be a lot of variance here. So hopefully we can try to be on the right side of that. First up on the card is Sabina Mazo, the Colombian Queen versus JJ Aldrich. This one is at a dead even pick'em. And basically, I have a decent amount of interest in Sabina Mazo here. She's coming off the big performance against Shayna Dobson back in August, where she was dominant the entire fight after dropping her UFC debut in her previous bout. She's known for her head kicks, has a couple head kick knockouts on the regional scene, and this should be a competitive matchup against JJ Aldrich, who's 4-2 in the UFC, but she really doesn't pose any serious threats. She's a good boxer, but that's pretty much all she is, and she will have a height and reach disadvantage against the bigger Sabina Mazo. Look for Aldrich to try to close the distance and try to outpoint Mazo, which is definitely within the range of outcomes here. But with that being said, I do lean Mazo for a couple reasons. First, I think her kicks are a pretty big advantage here, and I think her reach advantage will make a difference. Secondly, I think, we've seen Aldrich in the past look good in the beginning when she's applying that pressure. But as soon as she gets hit, especially hit hard, she tends to sort of panic and crumble. And, we've seen Mazo kind of invite that a little bit in her 2 UFC fights. And lastly, you get a $200 price savings going to Sabina Mazo here. So overall, I think it's a close fight, but I do think Mazo wins. I think she has much, much more upside in terms of DraftKings. If you look at JJ Aldrich's past DraftKings fights, and we can pull it up here. Where's Aldrich? Oh, there she is. If you look at her past DraftKings fights, like even in her wins, she does not have a ton of upside. 75 in a win, 53 in a win, 65 in a win, 79 in a win. No wrestling. She's literally just a technical boxer. And while that can win you fights, like I said, she's won 4 in the UFC. against the bigger Sabina Mazo, who's also a decent striker, who's bigger. I think Mazo will actually look to get a couple takedowns here, landed 4 against Shayna Dobson. I like Mazo a decent amount. There's a lot of people that believe she is one of the more exciting prospects in this weight division. I don't know if I'm quite sold on that. You know, she looked great against Dobson, no doubt about it, but Shayna Dobson's like a complete and total punching bag. So yeah, I like Sabina Mazo. I'm higher on her than the field just because I think this fight is going to be one of the lower owned fights on the card. And Mazo does have a little bit of upside here. So I'm on Sabina Mazo for sure. No real interest in JJ Aldrich whatsoever. All right. Next up, we have Alexei Kaymer versus Justin Ledet. Kaymer, minus 115, comeback on Justin Ledet, plus 105. This one to end inside the distance is, fight doesn't go decision, minus 150. It actually opened up at 215, has gotten worse since the open. And I think the reason why is because, it's hard to disagree with. Justin Ledet, I know he just got knocked out in his last fight out, but he's generally not like a guy that's going to get sparked easily. And Kaymer, coming off the Contender Series, I'm not impressed with this guy. And if anyone that knows me knows that's kind of my wheelhouse is Dana White Contender Series fighters. I usually have a pretty good read on them. And it seems like the public is always shy to play them because they just don't know much about them. There have been some Dana White Contender Series fighters in the past who I've been really excited about, like Soriano, who crushed it for us last month. This is not one of those cases here. Kaymer is the slight favorite, but he landed the contract on Dana White Contender Series with the flying knee knockout win. But honestly, I wasn't super impressed with him, like, at all. He lacks aggressiveness. He really was kind of timid during that fight against an opponent who really didn't want to throw. So I don't know why he was lacking that aggressiveness, and he did get rocked by that opponent. And like I said, it looks great, like on paper. Landed a flying knee, has a bunch of knockouts to a few knockouts to his record, but the flying knee was like super fluky. Like he got sparked right before that. The dude like bum rushed in, like chin wide open, and he just perfect timed a jumping knee and sat him down. So and then a little bit of ground and pound after that, but it wasn't super pretty. And when he's boxing too, he leaves himself overextend a lot. His footwork isn't great. So like I said, I mean, he's just super green. Like I'm not saying he's horrible, like he's never going to be good, but he's only 5-0 professionally. None of his fights have reached the final round. They've all ended within 2 rounds. And then we mentioned Justin Ledet is only plus 105. So in terms of DraftKings, Kaymer at 8.8K is just way too expensive, And so naturally, people are going to want to gravitate towards the underdog in Justin Ledet at plus 105 for the odds value at 7.4K. He's cheap, but the problem with doing that is Justin Ledet sucks. Like he's a low volume fighter. He's coming off the knockout loss to Johnny Walker, but hey, that's Johnny Walker. That's okay. Not going to fault him there. But realistically, I think the inside distance line is inflated because I think we could see this fight playing out on the feet with low volume on both sides. And while I do slightly lean towards Justin Ledet because he is a solid boxer, doesn't have a lot of power, but he has a decent jab, I lean him just sort of based on the experience, but I don't feel great about it. I think Kaymer still does have some upside in the event that he could, I guess, knock Justin Ledet out. But at his price, he sort of has to do that. And so that's why I'm definitely leaning towards an underweight stance on him and really an underweight stance on this fight as a whole. I'll have more Justin Ledet because, like I said, 7.4K, the odds value is nice on him. But the reason why I don't feel he's necessary is because there are a ton of live underdogs on this card. And it would not shock me to see Justin Ledet win and put up 60 points. We've seen it before. He went 3 rounds with Alexander Rakic, only landed 12 significant strikes. Like, that's pathetic. But it's Alexander Rakic. He's a great fighter. But prior to that, he had a decision win where he landed 36, only scored 48 DraftKings points. Like, that's not going to do it. I think, he could be a little more active in this one. But like I said, if he's going to be 30, 40% owned, there's only 11 fights. And if he's going to be the most popular underdog, I'm going to take more shots on underdogs that I think have more upside that we'll get to later in this card. But I think he's in play just because Kaymer is inexperienced and really just not that good. There's another Dana White Contender Series fighter later on this card that I'm definitely more excited about than Kaymer. All right, next fight up is going to be Drew Dober, Nasrat Haqparast. So I guess really like casual fans don't know much about Haqparast. He's only fought a few times in the UFC, but he hits hard. He's durable. If you don't know, he looks like Kevin Gastelum's identical twin. But he's a good fighter. There's no denying that. I definitely think the line is wide here, though. Basically, I kind of like Drew Dober. And Haqparast is coming in as a pretty big favorite, minus 335. And I expect this fight to play out on the feet. And obviously, when you have two fighters that I don't think are that far apart in terms of talent when it comes to striking, the line should not be 335. This should be like minus 150, 160, okay? But anything over a 2-1 in favor of the more inexperienced Haqparast, I think is kind of crazy. And like I said, I think he should be the favorite, but I just think the line's too wide. And Drew Dober is being undervalued for sure. Like, even if you think Haqparast is the next big thing, which a lot of people do, he's coming into this fight. Drew Dober is coming into this fight having won 4 of his last 5 fights. And the fight he lost against Dariush, he actually was piecing him up. He had Dariush wobbled in that fight. If you go back and watch the tape, and then Dariush subbed him out. And that's always been Drew Dober's weakness. His last 4 losses, I believe, are all by submission. But Dober is a good striker. Like, don't get it twisted. He owns multiple first-round knockouts. He's got a heavy left hand. He's a good counter striker. But like I said, I mean, Nasrat, there's no denying the talent. He is definitely an up-and-comer in this division. He hits hard. His chin checks out, so we haven't really seen him get chin checked. I'm picking Haqparast to win, but like I said, I think it's much closer than the line suggests. So I think there's betting value on Dober here and DraftKings value, because at 6.9K, he's just way too cheap. And if I think he has a reasonable chance to win here, then 6.9K opens up Conor McGregor and Maci Barber lineups. It opens up a lot of stuff. So I'm definitely going to be overweight on Drew Dober here, even though I think it's going to be a close competitive fight. And when it comes to Haqparast, I think he's going to be popular, and he's 9.3K. So when you price a guy right next to Conor McGregor, right next to Maci Barber, those are the 2 best inside distance lines on the slate. This one is not expected to end inside the distance. So why are so many people going to play a chalky Nasrat Haqparast? And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not that chalky, but fight doesn't go to decision. Oh, it's actually got better. It's fight doesn't go to decision is plus 115. It was actually worse. Plus 160 is what it opened up as. So I guess it's trending in the right direction. That's not as bad as it was. So I guess if you think he does get a finish here, but Drew Dober has a pretty strong chin, I'd kind of be surprised. Yeah, I like Dober as an underdog pick, even though I think Haqparast probably wins the fight 6 out of 10 times. The line's just too wide. So I'll have pieces of both. Very minimal exposure to DraftKings to Haqparast, though, just because I think if he does win, I don't think he outscores Maci Barber, and I don't think he outscores Conor McGregor. Moving on to the next fight on the card, Tim Elliott, Askar Askarov. Here's another one, an underdog that's going to be popular, that a lot of people are on. And, the scary thing here is Tim Elliott is a character, but there's a lot that I want to get into about this fight because I think it is going to be one of the more popular underdogs picks. But literally, if you listen to any other podcast, you look anywhere in the industry, everybody loves Tim Elliott. Most people are picking Tim Elliott to win this fight. So why did the line go from minus 130 to plus 130? Pretty interesting, huh? And then something else I want to talk about Askarov here is he fought Brandon Moreno his last time out. I was on Brandon Moreno in that fight. I thought Brandon Moreno won that fight. It ended up being, was that the draw? Yeah, I think that was the draw where I thought Moreno won the fight. But prior to that, Askarov was coming in and everybody just thought he was going to roll over Brandon Moreno like he was the next big Russian talent or whatever. It was the draw. Scored 52 points in the draw, did land a few takedowns, advanced 4 times. So he has some grappling upside. But I just think it's funny, like everybody was so high on him in the Brandon Moreno fight, and Brandon Moreno is a good grappler. Like, don't get it twisted. And the fact that Brandon Moreno came out and fought him well, now everybody all of a sudden thinks this guy, he sucks, he's not that good, whatever. So it's just funny how they completely did a 180 on it. I didn't think he was all that great. I still don't think he's a superstar. But when we're talking about Tim Elliott, there's a lot of question marks here for sure. He has a long history in the UFC, kind of a head case, a party animal. He's coming in as a slight underdog. He's lost 6 of his last 8 fights. So when you look at that, you're like, why is this dude that's losing a bunch of fights going to be whose line is moving in the wrong direction, going to be one of the most popular underdogs on the slate? When you look at it from that perspective, I don't know if it's the right play. And I can't help but think that it's just the recency bias of Askarov fighting Brandon Moreno to a draw of why this line is so close, and Elliott's, I'm going to have shares of him. He's super boom or bust, which is great for tournaments if he pays off. But I think the more likely outcome is actually that Askarov wins and probably by submission, or through a wrestling based decision. But either way, like I said, I'll have exposure to both on DraftKings. I think this fight should score pretty well because I think it either ends in a submission, either way, being Elliott or Askarov, or it ends in a wrestling-based decision with multiple grappling exchanges, a lot of advances, a lot of reversals, which is great for DraftKings scoring. And, the reason Elliott is going to be so popular is because anyone that's been playing DraftKings MMA knows how much upside he has. When he fought Louis Smolka, and granted it was a few years ago, Smolka had the alcoholic issues, but he landed 12 takedowns, 14 advances, scored 176 on DraftKings. So that's the type of, he scored 136, 120 before, 109 2 fights ago. Like, he does have upside. There's no denying that. But we also saw, like, the downside that he got subbed by Davis and Figueiredo his last time out, got subbed by Ben Wynn, got subbed by, he puts himself in compromising positions, even though he's a good grappler. It's just worrisome because if Askarov, who's also a solid grappler, if he gets good position on him, I think he closes the deal and gets the job done. So, like I said, I'll have pieces of Elliott because if he does break the slate and score 150 as a 7.5 underdog, you're going to want to have him. You have to have exposure to him. But at the same time, I think his ownership's going to be a little bit inflated. And if he loses, I think Askarov's going to score well. So it's a decent leverage spot, in my opinion. So I do like this fight as a whole. All right. Next fight up on the card is going to be Andre Fili, Sadiq Yusef. This is probably one of the fights I'm most excited about outside of the Conor McGregor fight. 2 guys that I like a lot. I like both of these fighters. Andre Fili, been watching him a long time. As you can see, this fight opened up pretty much a pick'em. He's now a slight underdog at plus 125. Sadiq Yusef, money coming in on him. No surprise there. Fight as a whole is minus 160 not to go to decision. So that right there should tell you this fight should score pretty well regardless. And I actually think the winner of this fight is very likely to end up on the optimal lineup. So it's going to be hard for me not to have at least one of these fighters on every single lineup that I make. So that just goes to show you how much I do like this fight in terms of scoring. Sadiq Yusef does have the better inside distance line, plus 150. And it was getting worse early, and now it's come down to back to where it opened at plus 150. So that's interesting. But I think, Andre Fili is kind of undervalued here. I think at 7.7K, I'm really tempted to play a lot of him. Obviously, Sadiq Yusef, he's knocking out people. Awesome boxer, super quick. Everyone's excited about him for good reason. Excellent boxer, like I said. 2 of his 3 UFC wins are by knockout. Andre Fili, on the other hand, has won 4 of his last 5 fights. He's been in the UFC a long time, even though he's not super old. I think he's my age. I think he's 29, but it seems like he's finally starting to get everything together. Like, things are really clicking. 4 of his last 5 fights. And coming off the big first round head kick knockout of Maurice, which was awesome in front of his hometown. That was the first time I think his dad got fresh out of jail, got to see him fight. So real emotional win for him. And this is definitely the best level of competition that Sadiq Yusef has faced, which I think, Andre Fili, I mentioned the experience. He's battle tested, and he's not a bad fighter. Like, he's got some talent. He's got some tools. Very smart fight IQ. Will look to land takedowns. I think that's his best path to victory here, to take some of the wind out of Sadiq Yusef's quickness. And Sadiq Yusef's takedown defense has yet to be tested at the UFC level. And I expect Fili's game plan to be just that, to make Sadiq wrestle early and defend takedowns. And if he tires him out like that, it takes away Sadiq's biggest advantages, which is his speed and his boxing. It's also a little bit concerning that I've heard everyone be on Sadiq Yusef here, but he's only a slight favorite. The line moved in his favor, but only a little bit. And if you're into the MMA math stuff, Yusef fought Maurice and won a decision. And then obviously Fili knocked him out. Both fighters fought Benitez. Both fighters knocked him out in the first round. So it's definitely interesting. They fought some of the same guys. Mike Turner said the Mike Davis Sadiq Yusef fight on Dana White Contender Series was absolutely insane. Yeah, if you haven't seen that fight, go back and watch it. That was one of the best, probably the best Dana White Contender Series fight ever, in terms of excitement for fans, but also in terms of talent, because both of those guys are awesome, quick boxers, good strikers. So yeah, I like Sadiq Yusef. I think if he wins, he probably gets a finish, scores really well in the mid-range. But my lean is Andre Fili. I think the experience plays a big factor here. I think the fight IQ plays a big factor here. And he's proven that he will do that when he knows that's an advantage for him, is he will look to land takedowns. I hope he does. That's the smartest game plan. Make Sadiq wrestle early. But even if it is a striking affair, Fili's no slouch on the feet either. So that's why I think my lean is Fili. I'll have more exposure to Fili just because he's $800 cheaper. And if he wins, even in a decision, if he lands 3 or 4 takedowns, probably still has a good chance at landing on the optimal lineup. But my lean is Fili here. Overall, I think it's going to be a really close fight. I'll have exposure to both fighters. The pick is Fili. Next fight up on the card is Maci Barber, Roxane Ferry. Yeah, I mean, not a lot to talk about here. Maci Barber, the future, minus 830 favorite. She was close to 1,000, which is insane. Second best inside distance line on the slate, second only to the notorious one, Conor McGregor. Basically, there's not much to talk about here. Roxane Ferry's a veteran. She's very old. She's very slow. She has a good grappling game, decent wrestler. But but she has no shot here. Maci Barber is going to knock her out probably early within the first or second round. Great play on DraftKings, 9.5K. I believe is the most expensive fighter on the card. But yeah, I mean, it's no secret. Everybody's going to be on Maci Barber here for good reason. She's like the safest fighter on the card. And she's probably going to win in a knockout. One thing that I did think was really funny, and I can't take credit for it, somebody on Twitter, and I can't remember who, I might have retweeted it a couple days ago, said that Roxane Ferry reminds you of the girl in 6th grade who was obsessed with horses, which after there's a mugshot of Roxane Ferry, and after hearing that, I just can't get it out of my head. I think it was pretty spot on and pretty funny. But yeah, that was basically all I have to say about Roxane Ferry. She's gonna get starched here, no doubt about it. Love Maci Barber. Think that she rolls. All right, next fight up on the card is Anthony Pettis, Diego Ferrara. Here's another one. The underdog's being undervalued here, and it's no surprise because Anthony Pettis, it seems like he's always undervalued, but it's usually because of the competition that he's facing. And this one, I'll be honest, like, I'm on Anthony Pettis here, and Ferrara's a big favorite, minus 230, coming in on a 5-fight win streak. But look at the level of competition. Like, he's been fighting pretty much slouches. I mean, not complete cans, but I mean, not the level. Pettis is out here fighting the best guys in multiple divisions. Yeah, Pettis sucks. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I understand why people don't like playing Anthony Pettis. He's obviously boom or bust. But look who the guys that he's fighting. He's fighting the best fighters in multiple divisions, and he's having good moments in those fights, even great moments in those fights, even in the ones that he lost. And I just think, this is gonna be a stand and trade match, and I think Ferrara is obviously going to try to pressure him. Pettis does not land in volume, so it's knockout or bust. But at 7.2K, Pettis has got a ton of upside here. I think Pettis or Dober is going to break the slate. One of those two big underdogs might break the slate. And I think he fits very well in Conor McGregor, Maci Barber lineup combinations. Those doing that, I'm going to be having a lot of those combos. And the reason why is because Anthony Pettis is like a great striker. Like, I know he's been hurt before. He's quit in the Tony Ferguson fight. He gave up. Yeah, but at the end of the day, there's levels to this shit. And Diego Ferrara is not fighting. I mean, look at the guys who he's fighting. Like, these guys are not even close to the level of competition that Pettis is fighting. And like I said, Pettis is holding his own at that level. Like, let me pull up Ferrara. Like, let's take a look at I mentioned the 5-fight win streak. I forget how to say this guy's name. Sumiov, whatever. Beat him. That fight was actually pretty ugly. Didn't look good till the second or third round. Started off slow in that one. Kabalov, okay. Kyle Nelson, he sucks. Olivier Aubin-Mercier, okay. He's, definitely towards the decline in his career. But anytime he fought like somebody good, he didn't win. He got dominated. Dustin Poirier knocked him out. Dariush, who's like a fringe top 15 guy, lost to him in a decision that wasn't even close. So now he's having his biggest test, I think, in Anthony Pettis, who's also a good striker. Although Ferrara lands in higher volume, I think Pettis is the more technical striker, and I think he has a reasonable chance to knock him out here. And if that's the case, Pettis doesn't win decision fights. Looking at his fights, like, if it goes all 3 rounds, he's probably going to lose. Yeah. But I think he has the potential to knock him out here. I think he's the better fighter on the feet. And I just think, he's being undervalued. He's had a couple really strong camps in his last fights out. Say what you want about the Wonderboy Thompson knockout. It's fluky, whatever, the Superman off the cage. But Pettis didn't look bad in that fight. And then coming into the Diaz fight, they talked about his having one of the best training camps ever. But if you listen to the Ariel Helwani interview, he did suffer giving USADA a piss test. He actually cut his hand and had to super glue his hand during that fight. And I mean, I'm not saying that's why he lost to Diaz, but he showed really good moments in the Diaz fight. He was actually winning that fight on the feet if you go back and watch it. And that's why Nate decided to take it to the ground, and that's where he dominated and did Nate Diaz things. But on the feet, Anthony Pettis, for sure, it can still go out and bang. So I think he surprises people. And the other funny narrative thing is like looking at Anthony Pettis. So he's beat, obviously the guys that he has wins against are he has wins against Wonderboy Thompson, Michael Chiesa, who fights next week in Raleigh. I'll be at that card. Charles Oliveira, like these guys are way out of Diego Ferreira's league. And the other funny narrative is like, look at Pettis. He won, lost, and now he's coming off a loss. So if he's alternating wins and losses, what do you think's going to happen here? No, I mean, obviously that means nothing, but I like Pettis here. I think, even if Ferrara is the favorite, whatever, I think Pettis, in terms of a live dog who has a chance to score big, I think he absolutely fits that mold. I mean, a lot of people think if Ferrara takes it to the ground, Pettis could be dominated, and maybe that's Ferrara's game plan. But from what we've seen from him, he's not a super. He wants to stand and trade, and if he does that against Anthony Pettis, I think he gets pieced up and he regrets it. And even if it goes to the ground, I don't think he's going to dominate him like Nate Diaz dominated him. So I mean, I don't know. It's because Pettis, he has a couple submissions. He's pretty slick off his back as well. So I don't think it's like. Even if it goes to the ground, I don't think Pettis is like completely dead either. So I know that was a lot, but I think it's important because I think Pettis has the potential to be one of those guys that you need to end up on the optimal lineup. Moving on to the next fight on the card, Brian Kelleher, O'Day Osborne. So I hinted at this one earlier. This is the other Dana White Contender Series fighter that I am excited about. O'Day Osborne, I believe his nickname is the Jamaican Sensation. Minus 135 favorite here. Comeback on Brian Kelleher is plus 125. This fight as a whole is minus 215 inside the distance, and it's been trending in the right direction since open. And I think that's the right way. I think regardless, somebody gets a finish here. Brian Kelleher has some finishes to his record. He's also been finished. I'm really excited for this fight. I think it's going to score well. And I like Osborne. I'm definitely on the Osborne side. And I think because, based on the DraftKings price, he should be relatively low owned in the sense that Kelleher is only like a plus 125 underdog or whatever he is. So usually if those people are used to seeing those fights at like 8K versus 8.2K. So at 8.6, at only a slight favorite, I think that'll help in terms of getting an ownership discount. But Osborne got the knockout on Dana White Contender Series, looked good. He's got a boxing and the way he won that fight was actually an armbar off his back, which is like super fluky. That stuff doesn't really happen at the UFC level. But if you go back and watch the fight, like he was going to win that fight regardless, I think. When the fight was on the feet, he was piecing up his opponent pretty well. He does have a boxing background, decent grappling skills as well. And Kelleher is coming off a submission loss. He's 3-3 in the UFC. He's getting pretty old. Oddly, this will be his fourth fight on a pay-per-view card, which is pretty strange considering he's not exciting or talented, really. He does have a brown belt in BJJ and has fought the much harder competition than O'Day Osborne. But I think this is a great test to gauge Osborne's readiness for the UFC, to see if he's UFC ready. And, so I think this is a good test for him. And I think it's a test that he passes. I will have moderate exposure on DraftKings. I like him a decent amount. And if we're going to get an ownership discount, we would have had him lower owned if 2 of these fights didn't get canceled. But I still like him for the upside for sure. Kelleher as an underdog with a reasonable shot to win. If you think O'Day Osborne, shits his pants in his UFC debut, okay, Kelleher's a decent grappler. I guess you can go there. I'd prefer to go Tim Elliott. I'd prefer to go Anthony Pettis. I'd prefer to go Drew Dober. But I'm playing about 40 lineups, so I might have 1 or 2 of Kelleher. Not sure yet, but I'm definitely on the Osborne side for sure. All right, next fight. And that fight did actually, after the Grasso-Claudia Gadelha fight got canceled, that fight did get bumped up to the main pay-per-view card. Next fight up on the card is Alexei Olynyk versus Maurice Greene. This fight is minus 800 not to go to decision. So what does that tell us? Tells us somebody's getting finished here. Somebody's taking a canvas nap. So who's it going to be? I don't know. I'll be honest. What is encouraging if you're on the Maurice Greene side is that, he opened up as a small underdog, and I've seen everybody on Alexei Olynyk, but yet the line has moved in Maurice Greene's favor, which is interesting. Suggests sharp money is on the croquet boss here. He's the bigger, taller fighter for sure. He's got decent kicks. Alexei Olynyk is basically submission or bust. He's like 42 years old, super old, but he's still the boa constrictor, has a ton of submission victories. So at the cheap DraftKings price, he does have upside. You obviously want exposure to both sides of this fight because I think regardless, obviously if it ends in a finish, one of these guys is scoring well and they're both priced cheap. So I think they have a good chance to end up on the optimal lineup. At 7.8K on DraftKings, I know he's coming off 2 first-round knockouts, but that was against Walt Harris and Overeem. Those are obviously 2 super powerful, heavy-hitting strikers. Maurice Greene, doesn't really fit that bill. He's coming off a first-round knockout loss as well. Prior to that, he did knock out Junior Albini in the first round, but that was Junior Albini. You could pretty much sneeze on him and knock him out. So I don't know. I don't know how this fight's going to play out, really. It's a heavyweight fight, so super high variance. We know it should score well based on the odds. I would recommend getting exposure to both sides. I think if it plays out on the feet and Greene avoids a submission, he either gets the finish by volume or scores a low-scoring decision. And if it's that one, it probably burns us. So hoping it is not that one. Olynyk, it's submission or bust, as I said, but definitely a fight that you want exposure to. Next fight up on the card is the co-main event. No idea why they made this the co-main event. Holm has lost I don't even know how many fights now recently, but she's a small favorite here against Raquel Pennington. These 2 have already fought. I don't think this fight really plays out any differently. I believe Holm won a split decision, I want to say. But overall, just a low-scoring DraftKings affair. Pennington, she won a decision and ended up with 52 DraftKings points. I could see it playing out pretty similarly here. I think Holm is probably the better fighter. I think she wins a low-scoring decision. And I think even if I'm wrong and Pennington wins, she wins a low-scoring decision. So I'm not going to play either of these people. You can if you want. I would rather bet it at minus 130 for Holm. But overall, going to be a complete stay away for me on DraftKings. I have no idea why this is the co-main event. I get it. Holm has a big name. But in reality, she's just been living off the Ronda Rousey knockout for 5 years now. I think they actually should have put Andre Fili, Sadiq Yusef as the co-main because as a co-main event, you want an exciting fight. And I think that has sleeper potential to be the fight of the night candidate. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? I'm not Sean Shelby and Dana White. Moving on to the moment that you've all been waiting for. The notorious one, Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone. It's no secret here. I'm on Conor McGregor. And yes, I'm a Conor McGregor fan, but regardless, even if I'm a fan of fighters, when I analyze fights and make predictions, especially when I have money on these fights, I try not to let my biases get in the way. And I don't think I'm doing that here. I think Conor McGregor is going to win this fight, and I think it's going to be a beatdown. I think Conor McGregor wins. I think he wins in big fashion, probably in the first or second round by knockout. Best inside distance line on the slate at, where is it now? Conor McGregor wins inside the distance minus 225. And Cerrone inside distance line is plus 370. That's actually trending the wrong way. I think a lot of people think if Cerrone wins here, it comes by a 5-round decision where he takes over late because Conor has cardio issues. I have a couple issues with that narrative, though. Conor's cardio issues are exaggerated, for one. For number two, he basically really showed those issues at 155 and 145. This fight's at 170. He didn't cut any weight for it. His stamina is going to be better. This is also the best training camp that he's had, the most focused he's ever been. Look, watching him in interviews, listening to John Kavanagh, his coach. This is the best, most focused version of Conor that he's seen. Going up against Donald Cerrone, all credit to him. Cowboy hat off to Donald Cerrone. Most wins in the UFC. He's no slouch at all, but let's be honest, he's kind of over the hill. And I mean, not to say that he still can't win against good fighters, because he has won against good fighters, but he's not on Conor McGregor's level. And I think the speed is going to be a massive, massive advantage for Conor. And I think he's going to come out fast. And I think he's going to put it on Donald Cerrone and not even let him really get into the fight at all. And he's coming off 2 knockout losses against Justin Gaethje and Tony Ferguson. Didn't look great in either of those fights. The last fight I thought he looked good in was the Iaquinta fight. He did look good in that one. But again, in typical Donald Cerrone fashion, it did take him a round and a half, 2 rounds to get going. And he looked good late. And that's fine, but I don't even think it gets that late on this fight. I think the quickness for Conor just is too big of an advantage. I think it's similar to the Justin Gaethje fight. We just see Conor put him on him and put him out early. And that's that. That's how I see this fight playing out. I'm very confident that Conor gets the win. This is Conor McGregor, the start of his redemption tour. He's very focused. And when you talk about the 170 thing, like, oh, well, this is at 170 and Donald is a natural 170 and he's going to take Conor down and he's going to do this. No, he's not. He's not going to take Conor down. Conor has better takedown defense than people realize. Just because Khabib was able to take him down doesn't mean that Donald Cerrone is going to be able to take him down. Donald Cerrone even said he's going to stand and bang with Conor when asked if he's going to plan to take him down. He even said during the press conference, like, you guys don't think this guy has been working on takedown defense for months? Like, you got to be out of your fucking mind. Those were his exact words. And so he's not going to like get out there and like galaxy brain it and try to have this all wrestling. Like, he's going to stand and trade. He tried to stand and trade with Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. Like, he's going to do the same thing with Conor. And I don't think he's quick enough or athletic enough to keep up with this version of Conor. So that's how I see this fight playing out. I'm very confident Conor gets the win. I think it does come by knockout. He's a great play on DraftKings. Now, in terms of bets, so that's pretty much the DraftKings breakdown. I'll summarize that. So Conor McGregor, Maci, Barber, 2 excellent plays. Underdogs that I like are Drew Dober, Anthony Pettis, Tim Elliott, Justin Ledet, but he doesn't have as much upside as the other ones. Guys I like in the mid-range, Oda, Osborne. I like Sadiq, Yusef, Andre Fili fight a lot, and Sabina Meza. So that's pretty much it. As in terms of bets, getting Andre Fili at plus money, I think is something that you need to look at. Just because I think, I mentioned why I think he has a real path to victory here. So getting him as a dog against Sadiq Yusef, who's facing his toughest level of competition, I think is a smart bet. I also like, I obviously like Conor and Maci Barber, but you're not going to lay that much juice betting those people. So what I am wanting to do and what I'm going to do is if you parlay Conor McGregor inside distance line, or Conor McGregor by TKO, Maci Barber by TKO, and Sabina Mazo to win outright on FanDuel Sportsbook, that pays plus 337. And I feel pretty confident that 3-leg parlay should hit, hopefully, as long as everything goes according to plan. And then there was one other one that I liked. Oh, Anthony Pettis inside the distance. I like that quite a bit. And Anthony Pettis by knockout, I believe, is plus 470 on some books, and which I think, he probably beats those odds. Even if he doesn't get the knockout, I think those odds are too long. So those are some of my favorite bets that I like. You know who my favorite DraftKings plays are. Any questions, get them in the chat now. We can hang out for a few minutes and discuss before we get on out of here. Mike Turner said, this card is honestly a fight night card. Yeah, I mean, you ain't lying too much. I think it's better than people realize in terms of, I think we're going to get some finishes here, some exciting fights. I really wish those two fights didn't get canceled. Then I think this card as a whole would be a lot more respectable. But overall, I mean, it's a Conor McGregor card. We're paying to see Conor McGregor. So I'm not mad about it. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you, Turner. Any lineup questions, get them in the chat now before we get out of here. I also am going to do the giveaway. Almost forgot. So the mini game didn't work. So basically, I am going to, any questions, get them in the chat now. I'm going to pull up a random, generator, random pick names. Wheel of names. Okay. All right. Don't leave yet because I'm giving away money, like I said. So I'm going to put your guys' names in this wheel. If you're still in the chat, go ahead and type something in the chat so I can see who's still here. I know Turner, Crusader. Who else is here? Put your name in the chat so I know who's here, so I can see who wants the free ticket. $24.60 and $100K to first place. Chapman is here. Anyone else still here? Put your name in the chat now. Otherwise, you guys are going to have a 33% chance of winning a ticket here. The loyal followers that stayed till the very end of this 1 hour breakdown of UFC 246. I definitely appreciate it. Appreciate the kind words. Hopefully one of us takes something big down. Hopefully we all take something big down. People don't like free money. I know. What is going on? And I know there was more viewers in here because I saw the numbers. But if that's it, going once, if you want in the free draw for UFC 246, 100K to first place, $24.60 entry. If you want in the free draw, say anything in the chat right now. Going once, going twice. You have 5 seconds. If not, I'm going to spin this wheel and give away money. And you guys have a pretty damn good chance of winning it. All right. Giveaway is closed. Let's spin the fucking wheel. All right. Good luck to all. Oh, what a sweat. Chapman is the winner. Congrats to you. You have won a ticket to the main tournament on DraftKings, $24.60. Send me your PayPal or Venmo info, and I'll get that over to you as soon as we get out of here. Good luck on the card, guys. Should be a fun one. Good luck to everyone playing DraftKings, betting the card. Definitely appreciate the support. If you're not already, go ahead and heart my channel. Trying to get my followers up. I'll be back next week for UFC Raleigh. I will actually be at that card, so I'm super excited about it. I'm going to have an awesome breakdown for that one as well. But thanks, guys. I will see you guys next time.